Hello and welcome. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour. US presidential poll race in last leg. Harris and Trump campaign in final push. New polls say Trump leading in all swing states except Iowa. Israeli PM visits Lebanon border, vows to respond firmly to Hezbollah. India strongly condemns the violent disruptions orchestrated by anti-India elements outside the consular camp in Canada. External Affairs Minister inaugurates India's fourth consulate in Australia's Brisbane, also to co-chair the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue with Australian counterpart in Canberra. Alright, first up, let's get you all the latest on the US presidential polls 2024 as the race to the White House nears the finish line. So, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and her Republican rival, former President Donald Trump, put all efforts ahead of the Tuesday vote. As Kamala Harris campaigned in the battleground state of Michigan on Sunday, the Democratic presidential nominee urged voters to not fall for Trump's tactic on election fraud.
I would ask, in particular, people who have not yet voted, to not fall for his tactic, which I think includes suggesting to people that if they vote, their vote won't matter. Suggesting to people that somehow the integrity of our voting system is not intact so that they don't vote. And again, I think that it is a tactic. It is meant to distract from the fact that we have and support free and fair elections in our country.
Harris also vowed to end the ongoing conflict in Gaza, bring home hostages and ensure Israel's security.
I want to say this year has been difficult, given the scale of death and destruction in Gaza and given the civilian casualties and displacement in Lebanon. It is devastating. And as president, I will do everything in my power to end the war in Gaza, bring home the hostages, end the suffering in Gaza, ensure Israel is secure, and ensure the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, freedom, security, and self-determination.
In a video released on Sunday, the Democratic presidential nominee urged people to make a plan to vote ahead of Election Day.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. And yes, this race is going to be tight, but we are going to win. And one of the reasons why is you're going to vote. I know you are. So make sure you fill out your ballot. I did mine. I'm going to put it in the mail. And we are going to make sure that we fight together for the promise of America. And if you haven't yet, please make a plan to vote.
And former US President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump also held rallies in swing states to garner support in his favor. Addressing a rally in Pennsylvania, Trump said that he will bring back the American dream while taking a jibe at his Democratic rival and US Vice President Kamala Harris, stating that she had broken that dream and he would fix it and vowed to fix it fast. He asserted that under his leadership, the country would experience a resurgence, stating that the US would be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer and stronger than before. At a rally in North Carolina's Kinston, Trump said he is firm on his plans of tariffs, tax cuts and immigration.
She said, I'm going to impose a sales tax on the people. No, I'm going to impose a tariff on the outside world, and they're going to pay it for their privilege of coming in and robbing our jobs and robbing our companies for years and years. They like to say that the sales tax is created by a tariff. No, it's not. This is look, I had a lot of tariffs. I took it. The most beautiful word in the dictionary to me is tariff.
And Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump remain in a tight race in country's 7 battleground states 2 days before the U.S. presidential election. The final New York Times Siena College poll showed Vice President Kamala Harris with marginal leads in Nevada, North Carolina and Wisconsin, and former President Trump just ahead in Arizona. The two are in close race in Michigan, Georgia and Pennsylvania, according to the poll, which surveyed 7,879 likely voters in the 7 states from October 24th to November 2nd. Another survey of swing states has revealed that the Republican nominee is favored to win in all swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. A Reuters poll published last week showed Kamala Harris lead over Donald Trump. In swing states, the battle between Republicans and Democrats is often extremely close, with winners prevailing by tiny margins. And the world attention is focusing on the U.S. presidential election as the political atmosphere within America is getting increasingly intense as election day approaches. With multiple states, especially the swing states, preparing for potential election violence and unrest, security forces across the capital are on high alert. 2 days ahead of the election, workers were seen putting up additional security measures outside the White House and the official residence of the Vice President. Secret Service agents guarded the building. This election cycle, some campaign speeches have contained violent rhetoric, and courts around the country have been inundated with pre-election litigation. And more than 74 million people had already cast their ballots as of Saturday, which is nearly 47% the total number cast in the 2020 presidential election. That includes 4 million voters in Georgia, or 80% of the total that voted there in 2020. In the battlegrounds of Arizona and North Carolina, roughly half of eligible voters have already shown up. And in 3 states, Connecticut, Delaware and South Carolina, early voting has surpassed 2020 levels. All right, now we are joined by DD India correspondents from the US. We have Amritpal Singh connected with us from Florida and Shubhendu Ghosh from Washington, D.C. I'll come to you, Amritpal, first. Both candidates we see are campaigning in the swing states, as it is the last day of campaigning in the country. And the national survey points that they are very closely tied with a marginal difference over each other. So in a way, the swing states hold a key to the White House.
That's right. The swing states have always held the key to the White House, because though their composition in the Electoral College may be small, but they decide who the next president would be, because the election goes the way they go. And the latest New York Times Siena College survey points exactly to that. The difference is really marginal. If you look at Pennsylvania, the biggest swing state, both are tied at 48 percentage points. If you look at if you look at Nevada, for example, Nevada, Trump holds about 46 percentage points, whereas Harris is leading by 3 percentage points here. With a margin error, as I said, things could go either way. Again, in North Carolina, the difference is just about 2 percentage points. 46 to 48, 46 for Trump, 46 for Harris. Again, Wisconsin, 47-49, 47 for Trump, 49 for Kamala. Again, Georgia is very closely tied, 47 for Trump, 48, just 1 percentage point difference. Michigan, again tied, 47 percentage points each. Arizona looks a little clear, for Donald Trump. According to the poll survey, it says 45 for Harris and 49 for Trump. So nationally, she leads by a margin of 1.4 percentage points, and that is really no margin given the error margin. So that is why you see both sides trying to put all their energies on the last day of campaigning in the swing states. He was in Pennsylvania, she was in Wisconsin, he ended up in Georgia, North Carolina, her running mate again in North Carolina and Georgia, trying to woo the voter. She's saying that don't fall in for the election fraud rhetoric of Donald Trump, clearly sending a message to her voter base and the undecided voters that come out and vote, because whoever gets the voter out really wins this race.
Absolutely. Shubhendu, I'll come to you. He's also with us. What is the mood and situation in Washington just before the elections, and would you take us through the election process on November 5th?
Well, here in the national capital, the seat of power, Washington, D.C., the tension is palpable in the air. With the election day just round the corner, the security has been heightened for many days now. There was also an incident of a ballot box burning a few weeks ago. All arrangements are being made that any untoward incidents does not happen. There's an elaborate security arrangement at the polling stations as well. Besides the candidates, there's use of drones, bulletproof glasses and other such means. If we talk about the voting process on November 5th, it is going to be a voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But we also have to take into account the different time zones in the United States. For example, there's a time difference of about 3 hours between Washington, D.C. and California. So this 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. will have to account for that as well. Most of the voting happens on hard copy ballot paper by the voters. There is also about 25% of voting that happens through electronic voting. We have to also remember that during the early voting that has happened here in America, this time over, the numbers are quite historic. In most of the places, especially the swing states which are in focus in the elections, more than 50% of the voters have already exercised their franchise. The rest of them are expected to vote on November 5th, the election day. Once the voting gets over by about 7 p.m. in the evening, the trends will start coming. If the contest continues to be as close as the opinion polls have predicted, it might take many days to determine who the next leader, who the next president of the US is going to be. However, if any leader has a clear edge, then it is possible that within 24 hours of the elections concluding, we might know who the next leader of the United States is going to be.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Shubhendu and Amritpal. US is all set to elect its new president, but what does that vitriolic campaigning season say about the racial dynamics in American politics? How far has the nation come since the civil rights movement of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? The India correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh engages with various stakeholders to decode the issue.
We are traveling through the US to cover the presidential elections. We are here in Atlanta. America today presents itself as a beacon of hope, as the greatest democracy in the world. But it was not always the land of equality and freedom. Till 1960s and 70s, racial segregation was a reality. And then came Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and he said, I have a dream. The dream of equality and freedom from the scourge of racial violence and discrimination. Dr. King led a non-violent movement in the late 1950s and 60s to achieve legal equality for African Americans in the United States. In the 12 years or so that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led the American civil rights movement, they say that the African Americans made more progress than they did in the past 3 centuries. But now it's 2024 and time for US presidential elections. We want to understand what is the place for racism in US politics. We visit some early voting centers in Atlanta to talk to voters.
as a Black woman within America, I feel that it is my right to do my vote. As we all know, we are living in a country that was built on us, but not for us.
Race is not a major issue here, although at least one of the parties likes to make it one because their support is bigger in that base.
The United States of 2024 is far more racially diverse nation than America of the 1950s, but the vitriolic campaigning shows diversity and discrimination can exist at the same time.
Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Still today, we see big disparities. African Americans, Asian Americans, and Latino Americans vote at lower rates and have lower socioeconomic advancement than the white population.
Should I deny it completely? No, I'm not. I'm being realistic. That there is there, but we made significant progress, especially in USA. We made significant progress. Imagine having an African American president for not once, 2 terms. And now another lady is running for the highest office in this country.
The presidential campaign this year has been one of the most polarized ones. It remains to be seen if the outcome will heal the divisions or open old wounds. Shubhendu Ghosh's report for DD India, Atlanta.
Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. US long-range bomber joins air drill with South Korea and Japan. Pro-EU incumbent Maya Sandu re-elected to second term as president of Moldova. And Google brings AI answers to map the applications. Details after the break.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Updates on West Asia conflict now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his commitment to pushing Hezbollah beyond the Litani River during his visit to Lebanon border. Netanyahu's visit to the Lebanese border included an assessment with the commanders regarding the operational picture and defensive and offensive plans for the continuity of activity in the sector. The Israeli PM also met with reserve commanders of the Northern Nahal Brigade and spoke with them about their combat to date.
With or without an agreement, the key to returning peace and security in the north, the key to returning our evacuated residents in the north safely to their homes is to push Hezbollah back beyond the Litani River, to strike any attempt by it to rearm, and thirdly, to respond forcefully against any action against us.
And Hezbollah said it launched a barrage of missiles at an Israeli military base in the northern coastal city of Haifa. Israel's military confirmed that over 100 projectiles were fired from Lebanon into Israeli territory on Sunday. Several were intercepted and some fell in unpopulated areas. Now, Israeli troops recently detained an individual in Syria, which the IDF said was an Iranian operative who had gathered intelligence on Israeli troops in the border area. The Israeli military named the person as Ali Soleiman al-Asi, a Syrian citizen from the area of Saida in southern Syria. It said the operation took place in recent months, however, gave no exact date. Taking to social media platform X, the IDF said the operation prevented a future attack and led to the exposure of the operational methods of Iranian terror networks located near the Golan Heights. Al-Asi has been brought to Israel for investigation. And a former spokesperson of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been detained by the country's government. The man, identified as Eliezer Feldstein, has been detained for allegedly leaking confidential documents that may have harmed Gaza hostage deal negotiations, as per a court said on Sunday. Eliezer Feldstein was detained along with 3 other people, including security officials, said the court in the coastal city of Rishon LeZion. News of the case has led the opposition to question whether Netanyahu was complicit in the leak, an allegation denied by his office. Now, India strongly reacted to a violent disruption outside consular camp in Brampton, Ontario. The Indian mission said it is deeply disappointing that such disruptions being allowed for routine consular work. The High Commission said that any further events will be organized contingent on security arrangements made by the local authorities. The statement also highlighted other incidents of disruption during consular camps held in Vancouver and Surrey on November 2nd and 3rd. And the visit of Indian consular officials to Hindu Sabha temple in Brampton was met with violence by anti-India elements near Toronto on Sunday. Anti-India elements had been protesting the presence of Indian consulate officials undertaking an announced visit to provide administrative services such as helping senior access pensions. Many leaders in Canada have come forward to condemn the violence. Condemning the attacks, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau emphasized on the importance of religious freedom, while Canadian opposition leader Poilievre called the attack as unacceptable. Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown said he was disappointed to hear about acts of violence outside the temple. Kevin Wong, Toronto MP, also condemned the attack and asserted that Canada has become a safe harbour for radicals, and asserted that the country's leaders have failed to protect Hindus just like they failed to safeguard Christians and Jewish Canadians. And Canadian Member of Parliament Chandra Arya also condemned the attack on the temple, saying that a red line has been crossed by Khalistani extremists, highlighting the rise of brazen violent extremism in Canada. Now, local police said they had deployed heavily outside the Hindu Sabha Mandir in order to maintain calm during a protest. Though no arrests had been made, police have also declined to assign blame for the reported violence. The recent attack adds to a string of similar incidents documented in recent years, underscoring a distressing trend of religious intolerance. During the last few years, Hindu temples in the Greater Toronto Area, British Columbia and other places in Canada are being vandalized with hateful graffiti. And in response to North Korea's latest long-range missile test, South Korea, Japan and the United States on Sunday conducted a joint air drill involving a heavy bomber. The drill mobilized the USS B-1B bomber, South Korea's F-15K and KF-16 fighter jets and Japan's F-2 jets. The B-1B Lancer is a supersonic heavy bomber known for its high-speed performance with a payload of 34,000 kilograms of munitions, including both conventional and precision-guided weapons. The exercise took place 3 days after Pyongyang launched one of its most powerful and advanced solid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missiles, which experts say that could reach targets in the mainland US. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres voiced deep concerns on Sunday over reports that North Korean troops may have entered Russia, possibly heading towards the conflict zone. US intelligence has said that North Korean forces have reached Russia's Kursk region, sparking urgent calls from Washington and Seoul for Pyongyang's immediate withdrawal. With neither Russia nor North Korea denying these reports, Guterres warned this could dangerously internationalize the war. The Secretary General called for renewed efforts to prevent further escalation and reach a peaceful resolution to the crisis in Ukraine. Now, Moldova's pro-Western incumbent President Maia Sandu has won a second term in a pivotal presidential runoff against a Russia-friendly opponent. According to the Central Electoral Commission, Sandu had 55% of the vote, with almost 99% of votes counted in the second round. Her competitor, the former Prosecutor General Alexander Stoyanoglu, was polling at just over 45%. On Sunday, Moldovans voted in a runoff election, which was seen as a critical indicator of whether the country's long-term geopolitical alignment would be with Russia or Europe. Speaking at the headquarters of her Action and Solidarity Party in the capital Chisinau, Sandu said her priority in the coming years would be to be a president for all Moldovans.
Moldova, you have stepped into the future. Dear Moldovans, I am grateful to each of you who came to vote. I have heard your voice, both those who supported me and those who voted for Mr. Stoyanoglu. I commit to being the president for all of you.
Now, the King and Queen of Spain have been pelted with mud and other objects by angry protesters during a visit to flood-hit Valencia. King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia visited the town of Paiporta, one of the most affected by the floods that have killed more than 200 people, alongside Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and other officials. The king faced chants of murder, where locals accuse authorities of a lax response to the disaster. Now, cleanup efforts across flood-stricken Valencia have entered their sixth day with massive search and rescue operation. More than 214 people are killed in the deadliest flooding to hit Spain in its modern history, with sweeping away bridges and buildings. Residents of Valencia region were warned to stay home as the National Weather Agency issued a new severe rainfall alert. Now, the central coastal region of Vietnam is set to experience heavy rainfall for the coming days, bringing a high risk of flooding and widespread inundation to the region. Areas from Ha Hin to Quang Nai will likely receive moderate to heavy rain, with some experiencing very heavy rainfall in isolated areas. The mountainous regions face a significant risk of landslides and flash floods. At least 9 people died after volcano Mount Levotobi in eastern Indonesia erupted. The eruption caused major destruction, spewing plumes of lava and forcing authorities to evacuate several nearby villages. The country's volcanology agency raised the alert level to the highest mark and told locals and tourists not to carry out activities within a 7-kilometer radius of the crater. Authorities has warned of a potential rain-induced lava floods. Now, the city of Ouarzazate in Morocco witnesses early snowfall after more than 3 decades. This early winter is transforming the city into a winter wonderland. Families and children eagerly ventured outdoors to take in the blanket of a white that covered streets and rooftops, creating a scene more typical of the high Atlas mountain towns. This unusual winter spectacle has brought a sense of joy and community, with residents capturing photos and savoring the rare beauty of this snow-covered city. Now, in Serbia's Belgrade, hundreds of opposition activists gathered to mourn the victims of railway station accident in Novi Sad, accusing the government of negligence and corruption. The accident, which occurred on November 1st, left 14 people dead and 3 severely injured. The activists gathered near the defunct 19th century railway station. Protesters marched past government buildings in the city centre and demanded for the arrest of President Alexander Vučić. Opposition politicians, activists and right groups in Serbia accused Vučić's Serbian Progressive Party and his loyalists of widespread corruption, nepotism and excessive bureaucracy. However, Vučić and his allies denied those allegations. On the same day, Prime Minister Miloš Vučević stated that authorities were working diligently to identify those responsible for the disaster. And the ADIPEC 2024 exhibition and conference will commence on 4th of November in Abu Dhabi, gathering key global figures in energy sector to discuss energy's vital role in economic transformation. The conference builds on ADIPEC's 40-year legacy aimed at promoting affordable, secure and sustainable energy solutions. This year's event will feature 30 country pavilions, including India's, and over 2,200 companies with oil companies and energy companies. Now, Google Maps is embarking on an AI-powered transformation aimed at enhancing user experience and making navigation smarter. With this technology, Google Maps will offer more personalized routes based on real-time data like traffic conditions and individual preferences, providing faster and safer travel options. AI will also improve visual features, allowing users to explore neighborhoods in immersive details. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. All eyes on Jammu and Kashmir's first assembly session. Delhi AQI falls further. Toxic air sets off alarm bells ahead of winters. And Uttarakhand's Haridwar celebrates Ganga Utsav 2024.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of what we have done so far. US presidential poll race in last leg. Harris and Trump campaign in final push. New polls say Trump leading in all swing states except Iowa. Israeli PM visits Lebanon border, vows to respond firmly to Hezbollah. India strongly condemns the violent disruptions orchestrated by anti-India elements outside the consular camp in Canada. An External Affairs Minister inaugurates India's 4th consulate in Australia's Brisbane, also to co-chair the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue with Australian counterpart in Canberra. So, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar formally inaugurated the new Consulate General of India in Brisbane on Monday. Dr. Jaishankar, in a social media post, said the consulate will contribute to strengthening India's ties with Queensland State, promoting trade, fostering educational linkages and serving the diaspora. He thanked the Governor of Queensland, Dr. Janet Young, and Ministers Roslyn Mary Bates and Fiona Simpson for joining the inauguration ceremony. Dr. Jaishankar will also co-chair the 15th Foreign Ministers Framework Dialogue with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong in Canberra. He will deliver the keynote address at the inaugural session of the 2nd Raisina Down Under to be held in the Australian Parliament House. And Dr. Jaishankar offered tributes to Mahatma Gandhi at Roma Street, Parklands in Brisbane. In a social media post, Dr. Jaishankar said Gandhiji's message of peace and harmony resonate through the world. And during his visit, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar also met the Governor of Queensland, Dr. Janet Young. Both the leaders discussed opportunities and ways to strengthen economic, trade and investment cooperation with the Queensland state. Now, India and Algeria foster their defences ties by signing off the MOU, paving the way for deeper collaboration on shared security challenges. The MOU elevates the defence partnership between both nations, fostering mutual understanding and enhancing strategic interest. Now, the first ever session of Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory Assembly is beginning on Monday amid heightened security arrangements in the wake of recent spurt in terror attacks in the Union Territory. The Assembly session will take place at the Assembly complex in Srinagar, where newly elected members will convene to discuss crucial issues, including potential tabling of a statehood bill. All right, let's go across to Srinagar. DD India Shabir Dar has more information on this. Shabir, Jammu and Kashmir Assembly's first 5-day session, and it represents a significant moment for the Union Territory's legislative process and is expected to include a series of important discussions. What do we expect?
Yeah, definitely an important session of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly starting from today. The main agenda of this session is to elect the speaker. The first speaker of the Union Territories Legislative Assembly will be elected today in the first sitting of this winter session that is happening in Srinagar, and it is a significant session because a lot of business is going to transact in this 5-day session that is beginning today. So soon after the election of the speaker, the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha will address the legislators in the assembly. After that, the normal rejection of the budget will happen. The members will raise their issues about their respective constituencies, and from tomorrow onwards, there will be a debate on the address of the governor. So definitely a very significant development happening in Jammu and Kashmir, because after many years, the popular government has been elected by the people, and this is the first assembly session of this new government.
All right, Shabir, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. In Jammu and Kashmir's capital, Srinagar, at least 12 people were injured in a grenade attack on Sunday. The blast occurred at the Sunday market near the tourist reception center in Srinagar. The explosion caused panic in the area and sent shoppers scrambling for cover. Police has taken cognizance of this act of terror and is committed to ensuring that the perpetrators are brought to justice. The grenade attack comes a day after a top Pakistani terrorist affiliated to Lashkar-e-Toiba was gunned down by security forces in Srinagar. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address 2 rallies in poll-bound Jharkhand. Polling for the Jharkhand Assembly elections will be held on November 13th and 20th. The counting of votes will be held on November 23rd. Union Home Minister Amit Shah addressed 3 political rallies in the state on Sunday and released the BJP's election manifesto outlining 25 resolutions to mark 25 years of the state's formation. And November 4 is the last date for withdrawing nominations for Maharashtra Assembly elections. According to reports, around 36 candidates from the Mahayuti and 26 candidates from the Mahavikas Aghadi have turned rebel. The candidates have filed nominations against each other and have created friendly contests among the allies in many constituencies. Leaders of both the alliances are trying to pacify these rebels to withdraw their nominations before Monday. Voting in the state will be held on 20th November and counting of votes will take place on 23rd. Now, Indian capital Delhi's air quality touched a new low as many areas like Anand Vihar reported an AQI of 600 and above, the worst this season so far. Meanwhile, the overall air quality in the national capital stood at 434 as of 6 a.m. IST on Monday. Currently, the pollution level is 59 times higher than the WHO prescribed danger limit. Constant exposures to high pollution concentrations can cause severe health concerns such as lung and brain damage. And news coming in, tragic incident in India's hilly state of Uttarakhand. At least 15 people were reportedly killed after a bus fell into a gorge in Almora district. The bus was reportedly carrying more than 40 passengers travelling from Naini Danda to Ramnagar. Relief and rescue operations are currently underway at the scene. All right, so tragic incident in India's hilly state of Uttarakhand. At least 20 people were reportedly killed after a bus fell into a gorge in Almora district. and the bus was reportedly carrying over 40 passengers, and it was travelling from Naini Danda to Ramnagar. So 20 people reportedly have been killed, and the bus was travelling from Naini Danda to Ramnagar, and unfortunately the bus fell into a gorge in Almora district. So the relief and rescue operation is currently underway, and we'll get you more details, but as of now 20 people have been reportedly dead after a bus fell into a gorge in Almora district. Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. As northern state of Uttarakhand, Haridwar is set to celebrate the 8th edition of Ganga Utsav on Monday. Preparations for the event are carried out in full swing at the Chandi Ghat in Spiritual City, aimed to promote the conservation of river Ganga. The event highlights Ganga's cultural and spiritual significance and raise awareness among the public towards cleanliness. People in huge number flocked to the Deepavali Mela held at Mata Tripura Sundari Temple on Sunday. Situated in the northeastern state of Tripura, the temple is considered as one of the revered 51 Shakti Peeths. The Border Security Force Kashmir Frontier organized a half marathon in Jammu and Kashmir to raise awareness for Asia's second largest freshwater lake, Vular Lake. The event aims to showcase the beauty and significance of the lake and to promote conservation and sustainable development as a tourist destination under the logo Save Vular, run with Borderman. Indian Railways is operating around 25 festival special trains today, originating from Delhi NCR to various parts of the country. According to Railways, 145 extra special trains are being operated from the 2nd to the 8th of this month to ensure smooth travel during Chhath Puja. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. The US Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut interest rates again this week. And Alexander Zverev wins Paris Masters, our class's home favourite Ugo Humbert in the summit clash. And we'll also show you some glimpses showing enthusiasm among US voters ahead of November 5 presidential polls. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. The 7th session of the International Solar Alliance began today at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi. With over 120 countries and global partners in attendance, India's Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Prahlad Joshi, India's Minister of New and Renewable Energy, Prahlad Joshi, and President of the ISA Assembly opened the session with powerful words, reaffirming the ISA's evolution under PM Modi's leadership into a vital platform for global solar cooperation.
That India is also swiftly advancing its renewable energy capabilities. India's journey is one of the bold vision and the relentless progress. Under India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's leadership, India has set ambitious renewable energy targets and achieved the remarkable milestone along the way. Last month, India reached an impressive 90 gigawatt of installed solar capacity, moving steadily forward towards its broader goal of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030.
Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will hold meetings with his top two ministers to try to find common ground after they put forward contradictory plans to fix the nation's ailing economy. The standoff is the latest escalation in a row over economic and industrial policy between the FDP, the Greens and Scholz Social Democrats that has fueled speculation of the coalition's potential collapse less than a year before elections are due. A worsening business outlook in Europe's largest economy has widened divisions in Scholz's ideologically disparate coalition over policy measures to drive growth, protect industrial jobs and reinforce Germany's position as a global industrial hub. Now, 8 members of the OPEC Plus group of oil-producing nations have taken a decision to extend supply cuts until the end of December. The countries have agreed to extend the November 2023 voluntary production adjustments of 2.2 million barrels per day for 1 month until the end of December 2024. The 8 OPEC Plus nations are Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria and Oman. They have been delaying production increases amid concerns over slowing demand in China and the United States, which has weighed on oil prices in recent months. And the U.S. Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut interest rates again this week, while votes are being counted in one of the closest fought presidential races in decades. The Fed's two-day rate meeting begins on Wednesday and is expected to result in a 0.25 percentage point rate cut the following day. The United States has remained a bright spot in the global economy this year, with inflation falling towards the Fed's 2% target, while growth has remained robust and the labour market has remained surprisingly resilient despite recent signs of cooling. And the International Monetary Fund will begin its review of Egypt's loan program on Tuesday. The review is the fourth under Egypt's latest 46-month IMF loan program that was approved in 2022 and expanded to $8 billion this year after an economic crisis marked by high inflation and severe foreign currency shortages. Egypt had requested financing under the IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Trust since 2022, with hopes it could unlock up to an additional $1 billion. And striking workers at Boeing will vote Monday on the aerospace giant's latest contract proposal to end a bruising walkout that has dragged on for more than 7 weeks. The vote by about 33,000 machinists in the Pacific Northwest is expected to pave the way for production to resume at 2 Seattle area factories that build the 737 MAX and 777 aircraft after workers voted down 2 previous offers. Chief Executive Kelly Ortberg has implored strikers to ratify the deal. Boeing's latest proposal for its workers includes a 38% wage increase over the 4 years of the contract, up from a 35% hike in the prior proposal and closer to 40% initially sought by the union. Financial markets globally began the week on a cautious note on Monday, with shares in Asia subdued while the dollar eased slightly ahead of a busy week headlined by the US presidential race, which is set to come down to the wire. China's National People's Congress Standing Committee meets from November 4th to November 8th, which will be closely watched for further details of a raft of stimulus measures announced recently. Trading was slim in Asia on Monday, with Japan out for a holiday. However, MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.7%, recovering from its fall to a 5-week low on Friday. And US stock futures lost ground, with Nasdaq futures NQC1 falling 0.11%, while S&P 500 futures ESC1 is 0.14%. The dollar was on the back foot, with the euro last 0.4% higher at $1.0877. All right, sports updates now. We'll start with football. Moises Caicedo put the brakes on Manchester United's mini revival under temporary charge Ruud van Nistelrooy by earning a Premier League point for Chelsea with a stunning second-half volley in a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford on Sunday. The draw means Chelsea edge past Arsenal and into the top four, while Manchester United, who on Friday confirmed the appointment of Sporting CP coach Ruben Amorim, moved up one place to 13th. Van Nistelrooy will remain in charge for next week's games against PAOK Thessaloniki in the Europa League and Leicester again in the Premier League next Sunday. Ruben Amorim will then arrive on November 11 to become United's sixth permanent boss since Alex Ferguson's retirement in 2013. In Spanish soccer, La Liga leaders Barcelona beat Espanyol 3-1 in the Catalan derby on Sunday. Dani Olmo struck twice for Barcelona on his first start after an injury absence, while a goal from Rafinha helped Barca to extend their unbeaten run of their local rivals to 27 games. The victory moved Barca 9 points clear of Real Madrid, who did not play at Valencia this weekend after the match was postponed due to devastating floods in the region. Espanyol are at 17th spot, a point above the relegation zone. Now, Max Verstappen won a chaotic, rain-lashed Brazilian Grand Prix on Sunday, roaring back from 17th on the grid to reignite this push for a fourth successive world title. It was the Red Bull driver's first Grand Prix victory since the Spanish Grand Prix in June and delivered a bitter blow to Lando Norris' title chances as the McLaren driver dropped from pole position to 6th at the finish. Verstappen now has a 62-point lead over Norris in the standings, with a 60-point margin required after the Las Vegas Grand Prix on November 23rd to see him crowned a four-time world champion with 2 races remaining. Now, Germany's Alexander Zverev won the Paris Masters by defeating home favourite Ugo Humber 6-2, 6-2 in the finals. The 27-year-old has now claimed 7 ATP 1000 level titles over the course of his career. It was a happy return to Paris for Zverev after he lost the French Open final to Carlos Alcaraz in June this year. 4 years ago, he lost the Paris Masters Championship match to Daniil Medvedev. His victory in Saturday's semi-final meant the current world number 3 will overtake Spain's Alcaraz in new updated rankings. The German will next play the ATP finals in Turin from November 10th to 17th. And India's teenage squash sensation Anahat Singh won the women's singles crown at the Costa North Coast Open 2024 in Australia, securing her 6th PSA Challenger title of the year. Seeded third in the tournament, the 16-year-old downed Japan's 6th seed Akari Midorikawa in straight games 3-0. Throughout the tournament, she displayed remarkable form, dropping only one game. Anahat has previously won bronze medals in both women's team and mixed doubles events at the Hangzhou Asian Games in 2023. An Indian shuttler, Malvika Bansod, went down against 7th seed Mia Blichfeld of Denmark in the final of Hilo Open badminton tournament in Saarbrücken city of Germany. Bansod had no answers to the explosive game of the experienced Danish shuttler, resulting in a straight game defeat. She lost 10-21, 15-21 in the summit clash of the Badminton World Federation World Tour. Though Bansod was in good form this year, she won the Azerbaijan International in February and reached the US Open semi-finals in June. And the level of enthusiasm among the voters is high as the United States is heading to one of the closest and highly competitive presidential polls in its history. Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump and Democratic candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris run neck to neck. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.